series webinar in the area of starting your career in structural engineering. So a very interesting topic, and of course, always a very important area of engineering to discuss. And I'm sure very much of you are eager to learn more about this yourself. So you're very welcome again. So just before I get into the event and let us introduce the speaker, just to remind you, those who are graduates, to make sure you can log this as one CPD hour. I know you probably will be aware of the deadline for logging your CPD for last year. So now is the start, I guess, to start logging in for this year's CPD. So you can do that on your membership dashboard, as you see there in My CPD, and log that as you'll need, again, 35 hours every year. For students, the CPD requirement is not necessary, as you are still full-time students. But nonetheless, if you're on your way to becoming to graduating and becoming or going toward the work, you can transfer as a graduate member and become a full member again through your membership dashboard. Again, maybe close to the time after you finish your exam. We would encourage you to do that as soon as possible after your exam. And again, this can be done on your membership dashboard. And the benefit of becoming a graduate and full member of Engineers Ireland is that you get to avail of the great savings. So as you can see there, you'll still avail of the 1 year's free graduate membership, and then every year after that, it'll be discounted. And as you see from there, you make savings of over €700. So if you have any queries at all in relating to your membership or how the process, again, to become a graduate and full member of Engineers Ireland, please feel free to reach out through that email or through myself after this webinar. So this, of course, webinar is featured by, I guess, Sean Fitzgerald, who you can see there has wide ranging experience. Won't go too much into his background. This is what he'll speak more to. But he's a graduate of Waterford Institute of Technology and Construction Management and Engineering. And he has a wide range of experience, both here at home in Ireland, but also over in the UK. So I'm sure you can share some experience of there that he has gained also in this talk. And of course, he's now currently the project manager at Cairn Homes. And again, you'll be able to share his experience and his current role in there. So without any further ado, I'll welcome Sean to speak. And thank you again for taking the time this evening to speak to us. So Sean, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Pierre. Just have a short presentation just to share on screen. Just the presentation, Pierre, doesn't seem to be allowing me to share. Let's try again. Okay. Now. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. Good stuff. So afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Fitzgerald. I'm a project manager with Cairn Homes, and just put a brief presentation together to just go through my career to date, and kind of give you an insight to some of the projects I've kind of worked on over the past 10 years, and kind of insight into kind of site engineering work and kind of site-based construction management work. So it'll kind of just briefly describe, I suppose, the projects I worked on, kind of key learnings from each one of those jobs, and kind of areas I developed to progress into my current role. So just a brief synopsis of my career to date. I qualified in construction management and engineering in Waterford in 2010. So I initially did a placement, undergraduate placement with John Sisk on the Aviva Stadium as part of that course, and I went to college in the summer of 2010, and I moved to London and took up a position with O'Halloran and O'Brien. They were a civil and structural subcontractor in London, mainly working on groundworks and concrete frame construction. I then moved to a main contractor with John Sisk for 5 years. That was kind of, I suppose, in order to get a bit more rounded experience of kind of general building works, general contracting works, and I kind of ended up working mainly in a kind of residential projects with Sisk in London. So I spent 5 years with John Sisk, and I decided then to move back in 2017, and I got offered a position with Cairn Homes to kind of work in their high density department, which kind of focuses on apartment jobs pretty much around the M50 and in Dublin city itself. So kind of started out as a site engineer, kind of progressed my way over a 10-year period to project management. And I suppose this purpose of this presentation is just to kind of give an overview to everyone of what that entails, and the kind of the avenue of work that's kind of there for site engineering work, with a progression kind of into project management and contracts management. So Halloran O'Brien is where I started once I graduated. So as I said, they were a civil engineering company, mainly focused on bulk excavations, utility and service installations, and concrete frame construction. So developed kind of site engineering skills, so site surveying, kind of management of all the kind of engineering controls around concrete frame construction, which is obviously a big part of that work. You know, you're responsible for kind of setting out, ordering materials, reinforcement concrete for kind of shuttering work or in situ concrete works. Also developed, I suppose, early skills in programming works, and also there was also a heavy focus on temporary work. So formwork by its nature has to be designed, so it's the you know, the back propping formwork, shuttering for concrete floor slabs, retaining walls, vertical columns, lift shafts, stair cores. So a lot of kind of design work with kind of shuttering systems and shuttering providers on getting those designs to site and checking them off that they're correct for concrete pours. And so I spent two years with O'Halloran O'Brien. So this was one of the jobs I worked on, which was in Acton in London. So kind of had a mixed use. You'd be doing basement construction in one element of the site, so drainage, utility installation, and kind of overseeing the kind of setting out and management of those works. And also just on the left hand side of the photo, you see the kind of formwork and decking systems you see on high-rise construction apartments. So these were all in situ concrete buildings, and so in situ concrete columns, lift shafts, cores, and slabs. And it was primarily, that was the kind of building model for apartment construction in London, is kind of flat slab construction, blade columns, and not much precast elements, to be honest. It was mainly focused on kind of everything being poured in situ, formwork being made up in situ on site, and essentially that was the frame you provided back to the main contractor to kind of complete the rest of the job. So it was a big subcontract order on sites, and it was great insight for me coming out of college, and I kind of got hands-on experience very early. You know, you're directly managing site works from a very early stage, and you're organizing material, programming works, you're setting out, you're responsible for all the engineering control around kind of concrete, reinforced concrete works. You also get involved in things like logistics and tower cranes and access through the site. So 2 cranes in the shot there are luffing jib cranes. So there's an awful lot of temporary works around that in terms of the piled base the crane sit on. And you also have to select the crane, make sure it's suitable for project youth to deliver, and I would have got kind of insight into that immediately within a kind of 12-month period. So it was good working for a subcontractor. You know, you have to learn fast, and you get hands-on experience from day one coming out of college. And I kind of worked there for 2 years, and I decided then I kind of was getting into my third or fourth project. The projects were quite short in turnaround, and I was on my third or fourth job at that stage, and I felt I gained enough experience in that kind of role and job, and I needed to kind of broaden my experience into kind of general contracting works where you see other trades, and predominantly the kind of facade and fit out elements that come with completing a project. So I moved to John Sisk. I'd previously done a placement for 9 months on the Aviva Stadium. So that was a fantastic experience during my college time to get that experience on a huge scale of a project. There was over 60 kind of Sisk staff on the job, huge kind of setup in terms of the number of workers that were coming in, and the scale of the project, the materials that were brought in, and the planning involved with that job was real eye-opening stuff. Just coming out of college into a job of that size, and it kind of gave me good experience early on large scale construction and how it operates and how it's run. And again, it was predominantly working on the precast structure of the stands and in-situ concrete work, and seeing a little bit of kind of roof steel insulation and things like that. But kind of sets you up, getting experience with a main contractor like that early, kind of gives you a good broad experience on main contract delivery. So I went back to Sisk anyway, and I started working on a retail outlet in London, which was kind of a designer outlet, shopping outlet, and that went on for about 18 months. And then I moved on to kind of residential apartment construction. So that was kind of moving on from the stage where I was looking at reinforced concrete frames and isolation, and I was looking at the entire package of works associated with delivering an apartment scheme. So I suppose key skills that I developed on those projects, particularly Emerald Gardens, which I have a photo of on the next slide. I was actually involved with the tender process for that job. So that tendering gives you great insight into kind of the planning and the execution that has to go into a job of 475 units. So kind of got great experience in the tendering elements. Design management was also another area I kind of got a lot of involvement in. So it was a design and build contract with the client. So we were essentially taking on a project from, say, 10, 12 drawings to a full suite of construction drawings, and essentially the design team, the engineers, the architects, fire consultants, M&E consultants were all novated over to Sisk, and we had to, manage the design team to bring the drawings up to construction standards and then deliver to site. So that was great experience in terms of working, getting the optimum design from the outset for the systems we wanted to use, and getting design to suit your supply chain. So it's something that benefited me later in my career. I was very focused on what worked on site, what suppliers you were going to use, and trying to get that back into the design as early as possible. So that was a big element I kind of progressed on, and obviously got good experience in program management, cost control, and kind of specializing in residential construction. So both those jobs, Emerald Gardens, Canada Court, were RC concrete frame with full kind of package of works, that to deliver an apartment scheme of that size. So the schemes that these two projects were on were part of a wider kind of redevelopment of Wembley Park in London. So Wembley Stadium had a number of kind of car parks around it that were bought up by the client we were working for, Quintain, and they had a master plan to deliver 10,000 apartments around the stadium over a 10 to 15 year period. So I was lucky enough to work on kind of 2 or 3 phases for Sisk around this, and got to see kind of, I suppose, a huge regeneration scheme in terms of utility services, kind of district heating schemes that were put into these apartments. And they also even had things like waste collection, centralized waste collection facilities. So it was called an NVAC pipe, where it actually was a piped system where all the waste from all the buildings came back to a centralized waste collection facility on site. So you had a network of pipes that were bringing all the waste from all these apartments to one location for rubbish to be collected. You also had a boiler that was had the capacity to feed 8 to 10,000 units. So just a centralized gas boiler that was feeding a district heating network for all these apartments in Wembley. So it was a huge scale of kind of apartment building and kind of regeneration of an area, and I worked on it for 4 or 5 years, and I suppose that's where I developed I suppose my kind of, I suppose, specialist knowledge or expertise in kind of apartment construction. So there were great projects to be involved in. That's the Emerald Gardens, that's 475 units that were delivered. So again, you're managing 30 to 40 subcontract packages to deliver a scheme from, say, a set of 10 drawings to putting the keys into the client's pocket. So it's a huge spectrum of works. It's very varied, you know, and I suppose the great thing about kind of site-based works or getting on projects of kind of this scale is you know, the no day is the same. You get huge kind of variance in your work, and you're kind of dealing with different trade packages and different details every day. And initially I probably would have been focused on the kind of site engineering works for these projects, and then you can move into trade package management, kind of site management, and then progressing into project management. So that's Emerald Gardens. That's just a shot of just the start of one of the jobs. So it was just one of the car parks around the stadium, and that was stripped. We were just setting out there to kind of do enabling works to release piling on 745 apartments. So that image is actually buildings. It's the ground beneath the buildings on the left hand side of that photo. So 16-story tower block with 745 apartments in the overall phase. That's pretty much the first 2 weeks on site, and that photo was taken doing pile probing, checking of existing services, and getting ready for putting in kind of 16-meter long piles into the ground to form the foundation for those tower blocks. So again, just brilliant projects to be involved in, and you see a wide kind of spectrum of works when you work on a project of that size. So I kind of, my next step was to move back to Ireland with Cairn Homes. So that's where I'm currently based at the minute. So I'm a project manager with Cairn Homes, and Cairn are a house builder, and they're a client, I suppose, a client and developer in one. We self-deliver all our schemes, so we don't main contract out any of the work. We've dedicated kind of site teams that manage the delivery of our housing and apartment schemes. So we've a kind of varied set of jobs at the minute, you kind of go from 2 to 3 story houses, or 2-story houses will be predominantly timber frame kit construction with brick and render outer leaves. We also do 3-story houses, which would be duplexes, where you get a 2-bed apartment on the ground floor and 3-bed in the upstairs. And then you get into the kind of apartment jobs, which are predominantly based in Dublin, which would be similar to some of the projects you've seen in the previous images, where you have a multi-story apartment block, and you're dealing with, probably our biggest scheme at the minute would have upwards of 450 units on. So jobs are getting kind of the scale that the UK market has been at for the last number of years, and it's great to see that in Ireland, and the jobs are fantastic and on par with anything that's been built in the UK market or the European market. So it's great to see that our projects are getting to that scale. And just some of the jobs I've worked on since returning to Ireland, Marianella Rathgar was project comprising of 220 units, again, apartment blocks, housing, kind of mixed development. Rostrevor Place, also in Rathgar, 107 units. Donnybrook Gardens, very kind of high-end scheme just off Greenfield Park Avenue in Donnybrook, 84 units. And Shackland Park in Lucan is where I'm currently based, which is 162 units, kind of housing, duplexes and apartments. So Cairn, the company, was only founded in 2015. So I joined in 2017. So it was very early stages in terms of the company developing its systems, its kind of way of working, and preferred construction techniques. So Marianella was the first project I worked on. So high-end kind of 3-story houses, apartment block on your right hand side, very well finished apartment block, real high quality standard materials used in it, full brick facades, clad windows, zinc cladding to kind of all the upper floors and balconies, and full podium construction with a basement car park underneath. It's a fantastic development. It's nominated for a lot of awards. It was a lovely project to be involved in, just due to the kind of materials and the area the project was in as well. It's set behind a public park. So that went on for kind of 2-3 years, and then I moved on to the next phase, where I took the project lead with this project. So previous phase in Marianella, I was working as a site manager, kind of underneath project manager. So we had a full site team, kind of project manager, site manager, engineering team, and kind of foreman, finishing foreman team, kind of site team of 10, 12 on site. And you're managing all the kind of trade contractors that will be involved in delivering a scheme of this size. So everything from concrete frameworks, drainage, brickwork, windows, roofing. So again, you're talking probably 35 to 40 trades that pass through jobs of that size. So I kind of moved from site manager on the previous phase to project manager and project lead on this phase of apartments, which is called Rostrevor Place. So it's 2 apartment blocks consisting of 107 units. So pretty much took this from planning stage to project completion. So the role there is you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of kind of parties in order to deliver a job of that size. So you're going from a set of concept drawings to full handover to the end user. So it's a very varied role, and it's kind of, I suppose, the path you want to be going if you start in kind of site engineering work. You kind of want to end up with, I suppose, getting into project management and contracts management eventually. And this job, I was kind of able to use some of my previous experience from the UK market, and kind of seeing a really well established residential sector in the UK, where systems were very, very refined. Design was set out at the very start with kind of construction details being put back into the design drawings from the outset. So we brought a lot of that kind of thinking and a lot of systems back into this project. And I'm just going to show quickly just a few images of some of the systems and some of the techniques that were used on this job. So this is just a photo of the concrete frame construction. So the wall that's been lifted in the photo there, that's a twin wall precast wall that's supplied by flood precast based in Oldcastle in Meath. So this is a twin wall system. So essentially you have 2 leaves of concrete already formed, and you're just infilling void in the concrete to form your walls on your structure. So that would have been a stair core wall. Equally, you do it for a spine wall or a lift shaft wall within the building. So that used to arrive on site, lifted, craned into position, dropped, and the floors then on the photo on your right hand side, they'd be in situ flat slabs. Very important. The slabs are kept flat. A lot of services in residential construction have to run along that soffit straight to the outside, such as ventilation pipe work. And you don't want downstand beams or anything kind of getting in the way of causing you problems with ceiling heights and ceiling voids. So the image on the right hand side is the principle of what you go for in apartment construction. Keep the slabs flat throughout, and generally 225, 250 slabs. You can change the columns to kind of various methods. You can use precast, you can do them in situ. The walls, as you see in the photo, that's a twin wall system is what it's referred to. You can equally do that in precast. But it's a really good way of getting your building up quickly and given the framework to kind of allow the fit out to progress through the floors once your frame is finished. So just move on to kind of another detail we got here is use Schoeck connectors. So these are thermally broken basically connectors to external balconies. So one big issue in apartment construction, and comes up a lot, is how you construct your balconies. You see a lot of kind of bolt-on systems, off-site manufacturing or in situ manufacturing when you get into site. But this particular project, we used the Schoeck Isokorb thermal break with a fold in the slab to form the external terrace of the balcony in concrete. So the image on the right hand side is basically the external element of the balcony. It steps up then to the main floor slab, where you have a natural kind of 225 drop for weathering and for finishing, for allowing your balcony finishes to be fitted. But what's good about this kind of way of constructing a balcony, the balconies are built with your concrete frame. It's not another trade package to kind of follow, and you can actually finish the balcony within your scaffold line when you bring up your scaffold. It's always an issue on a job. You're trying to drop your scaffold to fit bolt-on balconies at a stage when you need to be finishing the outside of the job to get your handover. And with this system, it allowed us basically to build a full external balcony in behind a scaffold. So these decisions, they're very important. Like I was saying, that you give good direction to design teams, that like something like this is you'd be bringing up in your first design team meeting or your first briefing with the structural engineer, and you'd be setting out the plan in terms of, right, this is how we want to deliver the scheme. We want flat slab construction. We want to form the balconies with the structure as we go. We want to use this thermal break system. And look, there's a lot of decisions that have to happen to be able to give that brief to an engineer to go and start designing to that. You have to weigh up the pros and cons. You have to look at costs. You have to look at a kind of material availability as well. So, but kind of the key to kind of good project management is getting systems back into design very early. So we were able to kind of brief everybody. This is the plan for how we want the balconies to look. Another system, which is it's kind of widely used, I suppose, in UK and European markets, was bathroom pods. So this is essentially where you're bringing a fully formed bathroom to site on the back of a lorry and lifting it into position onto the concrete floor slab. So what you see in the image on your left is what arrives on the back of an articulated lorry to site. So you can generally fit 3 to 4 of these on each truck. So the bathroom pods for this project in Rathgar were made in northern Italy by a company called Bath Systems. Bath Systems supplied, it was 175 pods on this job. So just to give an idea of the kind of finish. So the photo on the right is the inside of that bathroom, and that's been lifted into position. So these are fully finished rooms. The only things you have to do is connect the water, the power, and to the outside of the pod when it arrives in site. So we use cantideck platform, which is where the pod has been landed into. So these are cantilevered platforms that you kick out off the concrete frame, and they allow you to drop the bathroom onto the platform, and it's then wheeled with hydraulic trolleys in off that platform into the correct apartment on that floor. Cantidecks are a fantastic tool on site. You know, we were generally bringing pods, windows, and plasterboard within the same week on this job. So you'd lift this into position, jack it up off the floor, back prop down to the ground floor, and you could load up all the materials for that floor at that visit. So we were scheduling in delivery of pods, windows, plasterboard, metal, all the kind of follow-on trades, kind of with this cantideck. Again, it's a serious amount of planning goes into that. You know, like that bathroom has to be, every component in it has to be approved. There's obviously huge considerations to be given into transport, logistics, lifting positions to get them into the correct area. And it was one of the first jobs we've used pods on, and we've since gone on and delivered 4 or 5 schemes now with the same supplier, and all kind of really successful and fantastic kind of solution to a very difficult room to build in situ on site. So again, another kind of plus in its favor, it's taken a lot of trades off site. So you know, you're minimizing risk in terms of materials, labor costs increasing. You know, you've one room kind of fixed cost at the start of the job, and it gets delivered to site. And that's the way, I suppose, the industry is kind of going at the minute, is how do you get modern methods of construction to work. We're constantly trying to de-risk things, especially at the minute. There's a lot of inflation with labor and materials, and this is a great example of kind of modern methods of construction where you're de-risking that at the start of your job. So as I mentioned, we were preloading floors. That's just an image of what the floor looks like. You see also in that photo there's a pack of windows there. So we were generally bringing in the windows for the project in at the same time as the bathrooms, and the windows were fitted from the inside of the floor slab out. And then once that was done, you preloaded all your floors. We used an SFS inner leaf system. So as I said, the building is kind of concrete frame with blade columns, so you have to infill the sections in between these columns to form your inner leaf. And predominantly this was being done in block work traditionally. So you were using block work and kind of precast precast floor planks as your kind of general kind of apartment construction. So we started changing, and that was kind of the history of our apartment construction. Up until this project, we kind of changed it then, with in-situ concrete floor slabs, pods, windows being loaded out, and then SFS construction on the inner leaf. So this is essentially lightweight, light gauge steel, that is 100 mil thick, and it is faced with a cement particle board on the outside. So very similar to kind of timber frame kit philosophy, where you've got 100 mil stud CP board on the outside and a fully insulated inner leaf. So this allows us to close up the apartment pretty quick. So you can see in this photo, that's you get an idea of the section size of the metal on the outside. You can just see it above the window in that shot there. We also changed all the party walls and inner walls to dryline construction. So it's again, I suppose the reason for that change is in terms of performance, fire and sound. You were actually getting a higher performance with a dry-lined solution than you were with block work, and we were also getting kind of speed in terms of our construction. So there's a lot of labor involved with block work in terms of scaffolding, getting the material up there, actually laying the blocks. It's also quite a kind of messy trade, wet trade. So with this type of construction, you get good speed into your program. And from a performance point of view, it was equal or better than block work, and also very clean trade in terms of managing it on site. So this was a kind of new way of a system that I had previously used in the UK, and we brought it into this scheme, and it worked very, very well for us. And to be honest, it's kind of used across a lot of the kind of apartment construction in Dublin at the minute. You'd see this sort of system being used. But yeah, very, very, very good way of forming your apartments. Very good for production, and again, the performance in terms of sound is excellent. So I suppose the last 4 or 5 slides kind of are our systems we brought into Cairn Homes from projects we had worked on previously, and they've all kind of, it's been a big kind of journey from doing block work construction, precast, to kind of moving into almost modular construction, dry line systems, and kind of taking in a lot of that detail early on projects and getting it on the construction drawing. So so the last 4 or 5 slides will hopefully just give you a bit of a flavor of kind of, I suppose, site management work and project management work, and kind of where starting out as a site engineer can kind of bring you in terms of working on schemes where you're looking at not just civils and structural work. You're kind of looking at various wide ranging building materials and trade packages. So that's pretty much it in terms of my presentation, folks. And just if anyone had any queries on anything that was kind of covered in the presentation, please get in touch. That's my email address. And Cairn at the moment, you know, we're developing into a kind of big player in the residential construction market. So if you're interested in a career, or you have any questions about anything on these slides, just please get in touch. You can email me directly, or there's an email there for careers at Cairn Homes, where you can get further information on kind of jobs that would be available within our company. But hopefully that gave you an idea of kind of I suppose a site-based role, and if there's any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer them. So thanks everyone for listening.
So yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. That was a fascinating presentation with so many great projects that you worked on, and actually, I know a couple of them not too far away from Rathgar that I've seen. So it's fantastic how that itself was developed, and I'm even more fascinated to hear about the bathroom pods. Wonder if that could be also implemented for other parts or of building units. But
Yeah,
before I shut off the recording, I just want to say thank you again, Sean, for doing this presentation on behalf of Engineers Ireland, and hopefully we'll have you again in the near future and see what other amazing projects that you're working on. So
yeah.
thank you again, and now I've